Frederick, I tried to adjust my microphone again. I hope that you hear me well now. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being here today. It is now 10 o'clock in Sweden and it is 3 p.m. in Thailand. So I would like to say hello everyone and Sawasdee krap. Welcome to the Thailand and Sweden Sustainable Development Forum 2021, from green and inclusive development to business opportunities. So the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm would like to extend our gratitude again to everyone for accepting our invitation. We are very excited to have everyone here today. So today is the second out of the 3 days workshop for this online forum. The workshop today is on sustainable forestry for the people, economic benefits, and environmental concerns. So first of all, we will have 3 opening remarks. The first one will be by Ambassador of Sweden to Thailand, Ambassador Jon Ostrom Glundal. Second will be from Ambassador Kanchana, the Ambassador of Kingdom of Thailand to Sweden. And lastly, we will have Kun Warawut Silapa Asha, a Minister of Natural Resources and Environment to the Kingdom of Thailand. So now, without further ado, I would like to pass my microphone on to Ambassador Jon for his opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Sawasdee krap from Bangkok. Your Excellencies, Minister Warawut and Ambassador Kanchana, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude that you, Minister Warawut, honor us with your presence today. Secondly, I would like to again thank you, dear colleague and dear Ambassador Kanchana, and your team at the Embassy in Stockholm for bringing us together again. As I mentioned yesterday, we are very proud to be part of this forum. Sweden and Thailand have a long history of close collaboration dating back over 1.5 centuries. This is especially true when it comes to forestry. And here is why. During His Majesty's visit to Europe to gain more knowledge and expertise and innovation in 1897, King Rama V of then Siam paid a visit to Sweden by the invitation of King Oscar II to participate in the General Art and Industrial Exposition in Stockholm. Since Siam had extensive forest resources, King Rama V was interested in learning more about the Swedish timber industry and opted to visit also southeastern Norrland, an area with many sawmills and major rivers for floating timber. He sailed north along the Baltic coast to Härnösand, then along to Ångermanälven River to Sollefteå, Bispgården, Utanede, and Sundsvall. All of them places that, by the way, are very dear to myself and to my family. I lived in Sundsvall as a child when my father worked there, and we still have a summer house in this area. The royal visit has become a milestone in our bilateral relations, as it has brought the two kingdoms closer and left a legacy in the name of the road of a road in Ragunda called King Chulalongkorn's Road. So Sweden and Thailand indeed have come full circle. Today, I'm very pleased that we once again can share experiences and best practices in forestry, historically referred to the green gold in Sweden. Despite a modest 1% of the world's commercial forest areas, Sweden provides 10% of timber, pulp, and paper, which is traded on the global market. This makes the forestry sector extremely important for the Swedish national economy, almost all of it exported. It creates a large number of job opportunities for people, especially in rural areas. The Swedish government has a strategic agenda to drive the forestry sector with a long-term, innovative and sustainable approach. Not only is sustainable forestry important for the economy, but in terms of mitigating climate change, our perhaps most pressing global challenge, all the more vital. Cooperation between our two countries in this context could have a lasting contribution and hopefully inspire more of the same. I would like to reaffirm Sweden's continued engagement with Thailand on sustainable forestry and stand ready to facilitate in any way we can. Lastly, let me conclude my remarks by wishing you all a successful event with many new valuable ideas and connections. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Yun. Now we will have Ambassador Kanchana for our welcoming remarks. Ambassador Yun, I think you're still talking, but your microphone is muted. Okay, now we will have Ambassador Kanchana for our next welcoming remarks.
Good morning, everyone in Sweden, and good afternoon, everyone in Thailand. Thank you very much, Ambassador Yun, for taking us back to over 150 years ago when King Rama V visited Sweden, and that paved the way for the continued good relations between the peoples of the two countries. I would like to welcome Minister Varavut Singhapa Asha for joining us today. It shows how committed you are to the environment and sustainable development. I have always wanted to invite you to come to Sweden to explore collaboration between the two countries. So wonderful that we have you here with us today. We are so honored to have you. But we would love to have you in person some days after the COVID situation. Yesterday, we had our workshop on smart cities, which is one of the areas of strength of Sweden. And forestry management is also one of the areas that Sweden can share to the world. Over less than 100 years, Sweden has managed to turn depleted land into forest land. The size of forest coverage in Sweden has now doubled from 1930 to over 70% of Sweden land area now is covered by forests. So I think that gives us hope that within one generation we can double the size of the forest coverage. So that can happen elsewhere too. A number of issues that we may think about in the discussion today are how forests and people can coexist. How can we have collaboration between people and the authorities? How can we make commercial and economic use of forests and at the same time protecting the environment? How to prevent forest fires? How to preserve biodiversity? How to move forest products up the value chain? How to use technology and IT for forest registry and management. So I'm sure that we learned a lot today, and I hope that today's workshops will lead us to the opportunity to have Minister Varavut to come to Sweden and even take more concrete actions for the cooperation between the two countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Kanchana. Now we will have His Excellency Kun Varavut Silapa Asha, Minister of Natural Resources and Environment of the Kingdom of Thailand, to do his opening remarks. Thank you.
Excellencies, Ambassador Yon and Excellency Ambassador Kanchana, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Sawasdee krap, and very good afternoon to you all from Bangkok, Thailand. Rest assured that we all here would love to take up on your invitation to visit Sweden. As a matter of fact, anywhere in the world would be okay, because we've been stuck in Thailand for the past 2 years now. We haven't been outside of the country yet. Also today, excuse me if I sound a little mumble through my mask, because it is mandatory for Thai people to wear masks in the public places at the moment. But nonetheless, first of all, let me express my appreciation to the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm and the Embassy of Sweden in Bangkok for inviting our ministry to co-organize this virtual workshop on sustainable forestry for the people. Now, the Kingdom of Thailand and the Kingdom of Sweden has enjoyed a close partnership and a very friendly relationship for over 150 years, and we have many things in common. Thai people also enjoy Swedish brands such as IKEA, Volvo, H&M, especially Spotify, myself. It is remarkable that even though the size and population of Sweden are relatively small, but its economy is very strong. I have realized that approximately 2/3 of the Swedish land is covered by forests, over 70% of it. In addition, Sweden is also an important actor in the international forestry arena in terms of timber harvesting levels, market shares, as well as technological development. So it is a good opportunity for all of us attending this workshop today to have a mutual learning and hopefully further bilateral and international cooperation in the field of sustainable forest management. Ladies and gentlemen, in Thailand, it is not difficult to plant and grow trees because we're in a tropical zone. But it's a tough job, though, to keep them growing and growing for 30 or 40 years until they can provide economic as well as environmental benefits. You may recall that exporting timbers and wood products were one of the major sources of income for our country, for Thailand. However, we've been experiencing declining trends in the forest cover, and therefore the Royal Thai government in 1989 imposed a logging ban in order to stop illegal logging. And since then, other policies to increase forest areas of the country has also been continuously formulated and implemented. One of our dominant policies is a 20-year national strategy, which calls for an increase of the forest area up to 40%. And in this regard, I'm confident that the key success is the people. His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej the Great once mentioned that trees should be planted first in the heart of the people. Then the people will plant trees on the land and nurture them. And His Majesty King Rama X has also graciously initiated a project entitled Reforestation, Afforestation, and Forest Fire Prevention Project. All stakeholders, including government agencies, private sectors, and public at large, have actively participated. The project spanned over 7 years from 2020 to 2027, where over 600 million seedlings will be planted on 400,000 hectares all over the country. The principal aim is to increase Thailand's green areas according to our long-term national strategy and to tackle problems of air pollution, particularly PM 2.5, as well as to reduce greenhouse gases emission while collectively encompass our carbon sink. The project was officially launched by our Prime Minister, General Prayut Chan-o-cha, last year. And moreover, several prominent policies based on people-centric approaches have been manifested to balance between the social and economic interests and environmental consideration, such as the establishment of the National Land Policy Committee, chaired by the Prime Minister himself, to address the land tenure system. High value or economic trees are also advocated to be planted on land allocation. The amendment of the 1941 Forest Act, which allows the people to harvest high value or economic trees planted on their privately owned land, that before they have never had permission to do so in the past, is a supplementary incentive to increase the country's green area. The enactment of the 2019 Community Forest Act is also the strong social driving force, which encourages the people and local communities to conserve as well as to enlarge the forest areas based on their traditional knowledge and practices. It is anticipated more than 1.6 million hectares of community forests will be sustainably managed. In Thailand, the community forests not only serve as a supermarket for the local people, but it also plays an important role in generating revenue from the carbon credit derived from the forests themselves as carbon sink. In this regard, we are currently working on our long-term low greenhouse gas emission development strategy, which the forest sector plays a vital part. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that forest is a dear treasure. It shall be managed in such a way that it will provide a valuable yield and at the same time service our ecosystem. Conservation and utilization can and must go hand in hand. In this connection, I must highlight the importance of a partnership approach, a common element in every success story. The government, private sector, and local communities must involve in all aspects of forestry management, decision-making, and implementation. I'm confident that with this approach, we will be able to pass on our treasure to our next generations. Let's challenge ourselves to strengthen our efforts and to further build our partnership to manage our forests in the way that enhances economic value and environmental benefits while being socially acceptable. Let's use this workshop to learn from the experiences from others, both good and bad, and to build forward greener. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all the best and do look forward to see the fruitful results from this workshop. And without further much ado, I'd now like to declare the workshop on sustainable forestry for the people, economic benefits, and environmental concerns open. Thank you very much. Khop khun krap.
Thank you very much, Khun Warawut, for exceptional opening remarks. Now I would like to move on to the to our moderators. Excuse me, let me.
Yes. Okay. So, thank you very much, Khun Suthi.
Thank you very much. So from this session onwards, we will have two moderators with us who will be conducting the workshop. Here we have Dr. Rosario and Professor Yongyut. So Dr. Rosario is joining us as a moderator. She is currently a Vice Dean for Internationalization at the Faculty of Forestry and an Associate Professor at the Department of Forest Genetics and Plant Physiology at Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences University in Umeå, Sweden. And Professor Yongyut is joining us as a moderator. He is currently a full-time professor at the Forest Biology Department within the Faculty of Forestry at Kasetsart University in Bangkok, Thailand. And now I would like to pass the floor to Professor Yongyut for the first session, the policy making session. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Khun Suthi. So I also would like to extend my sincere thanks to the Mr. Warawut, Ambassador Kanchana, Ambassador John for your valuable time to join us this afternoon in Bangkok and in the morning in the Sweden. So as the opening remark and welcome remark by three excellencies. So we know that Thailand and Sweden have very long relationship, more than 150 years since King Rama V of Thailand. So during that time, the Royal Forest Department was established to look after the forest management and forest conservation in Thailand. And we have the continual collaboration both on the economic, science, and business development. So this session, we will talk about the policy making session to continue from the excellency on the opening remarks. So we have three distinguished speakers. One from Sweden, Mr. John Eriksson, and the second one, the Director General Addison Nutdamrong. He is the Director General of the Royal Forest Department. And the last one, Dr. David Scan, he is the Executive Director of RECOP. And Ms. Varankana Ratna, the staff of the RECOP, will join his presentation. So now I would like to pass my microphone to Mr. John Eriksson for presentation on this title of Swedish Forestry Policy Development and Challenge ahead. So John right now is the Vice Head of the Forest Department at the Swiss Forest Agency in Sweden, and he has a lot of experience. So John, now the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much for the introduction, and good afternoon and good morning at the same time. Do you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. also share my screen. The presentation is also shown, I hope.
Yes, everything is perfect.
Everything
Thank
is
you,
okay.
Johan.
Yeah, check, so then I continue. Yes, thank you very much for introduction, and I will continue here. And my topic is Swedish forest policy development. I will look back a bit more than 100 years on development, but not so long time on it, of course. And also speak about challenges ahead, starting from challenges right now. I'm quite sure that policy will change. We are not in some stable moment now, but it will be very interesting years. I just start to give you an idea about Swedish Forest Agency and our policy instruments. I'm not going to go through all of this, but just mention that we have quite a wide range of policy instruments. We can split them into informative, that today's forest policy is focusing on. They are extra important since latest deregulation of forest policy. But we also have a Forestry Act and some other acts also that we do supervision over. It's not so small, it's quite big work there also. And what's a bit less is this economical tools, mostly concerning the European Union Rural Development Program. But it's a few promille of Sweden's budget that goes to forests. Main part, of course, is agriculture support. It's a principle also not to support forestry economically. It's standing on its own legs. This has already been mentioned, parts of this, so I just go over briefly. Sweden, not so small country in area, but only 10 million persons. And with our geographical position, of course, it's natural to have quite much forest and with not so much people. Around 70% is covered by forests. What we say about 50% is productive forest land that produces more than 1 cubic meter per hectare and year is our definition. 3/4, like mentioned earlier, is owned by forest companies and private landowners, private persons. And most of it is private persons, about 50% of the total forest area. So we have about 330,000 landowners, forest owners. And like Ambassador mentioned in opening remark, it's very important in our economy, forestry and forest products. If we look to forest products, about 10% of our export income is from forest products. And this was also mentioned. It's quite interesting picture, I think. Forest area in a world scale, not so big, around 1%, but plus minus 10% of the export of timber and paper in the world market. Quite big. Was also mentioned by from Thailand, this forest area in Sweden. It was smaller earlier, but perhaps forest area, but not with forests then for a while. I look back to that also. But in recent years, it's been very stable. So we lose some forest area to growing cities, infrastructure, energy projects, and things like that. But at the same time, we gain forest area because the agriculture land is decreasing and passing over to forest land. So it has been very stable this 30 years, like this illustration shows. The basic idea about Swedish forest policy is that we could have multifunctional forest balancing different interests on almost all of the area. I say almost because there are, of course, national parks, nature reserves where there are restriction. But on the rest of forest land, we think that we can combine wood production, recreation, biodiversity, cultural heritage, and other important ecosystem services together. Of course, it's complex to optimize and manage, but we think it's possible to do it. I look back a bit more than 100 years now. This was the base for starting the forest policies in Sweden. We had quite big variation, but many parts of Sweden had degraded forests with deforestation, not so nice situation. Both fuel wood for households, it was many iron works intensively using wood as long as they could go to catch it around these iron works. So it's not so funny forest condition. And this then led to the development of the forest policies. Our first policy was from 1903 with the Forestry Act, of course, then focusing on this problem with deforestation and exploitation. And it was stated that after exploitation or deforestation, you had to regenerate the forest. And that has been the basic red line until today's forest policy also, where it's a big part of the Forestry Act. We had some more Forestry Acts, but we will jump to 1979, where it peaked this detailed regulation. And the regulation was very much about volume production of timber and pulpwood in long term to make sure that the industry in long run had good supply of raw material. At this time, the environmental concerns started to be implemented in the Swedish forest policy also, but on small level. But then after Rio conference and everything, of course, environmental issues became more and more significant and important in both legislation and policy. And the policy from 94 states, we still call it, by the way, our new forest policy. Of course, forestry in Sweden is very long time with 100 years perspective, but new since 1994 then. And then it has two equal goals, like it's illustrated, and forest production and environment. I usually say that if this was written today, of course, it would have been mentioned sustainability. We have two legs in the environment, not so strong on this social side, but it's mentioned. We also have one principle that's very important, forestry sector commitment, that states that all stakeholders should take their responsibility, both authorities and forestry and other interests that could affect the results in the forests and how it looks. And this goes back to my second slide there, when I mentioned that the emphasis now is on informative policy instruments. Big responsibility for landowners and stakeholders, and good information, knowledge, inventory to support this responsibility. That's the basic idea of Swedish forest policy now. But I think we are in changing times, and we will see where this ends up. It's quite complex situation right now. If I start from beginning, we have very polarized debate on forests, how they should be managed, what the use should be, quite aggressive and extremely polarized from different sides. And one thing is, of course, balancing wood production, economic and climate good with other interests. And because of this, it has been a forestry investigation that left their final document this winter, and now it's out for consultation. And from the opinions about it, we see that this polarization, it's not decreasing, it's more like increasing. And what we have focused on many years to notice that we need some political decisions, not easy decisions, but they are needed to make this seen more clear. We have also been running a national forest program for a few years, and not the least at regional Swedish level with big engagement from many stakeholders. But we are now, it was part of this investigation also, the role of National Forest Program. And what we see is that we need to continue to develop it, and it has to find its place in other policy processes because it's so much connecting and overlapping. So it's not so easy to run it isolated forestry. I get back to that also. What we see also, of course, climate change, like mentioned in opening remarks here, that we need to fight both mitigation and adaptation. And what we see very much of now is increasing forest damages. That's quite challenging. If we start from southern Sweden, latest years, we have fighting with this pine, the spruce bark beetle, it's Hips typographus, and it has been quite tough latest years. Not as tough as in, for example, Germany or these neighboring countries, but it has destroyed last year, I think it was 7 million cubic meters. In northern Sweden, we have a growing problem with fungi, Cronartium species that has been around very long time, but seems to be increasing. That over 20% of our pine regenerations does seem to be badly affected. But this also in combination of all Sweden where game browsing is big problem. So we have increased our effort and got extra funding for our authority also, and SLU also to work together to prevent this or control it or learn more about how to fight these different damages. I continue with one thing that's very important now is also this European Union policy making. It doesn't affect directly national forest policy, but through other policy areas that are very important, like environmental policies and energy policies, it has a very big effect on Swedish forest policy. So what we think now is that this liberal approach that's the base for Swedish forest policy is a bit challenged by more regulations. We call it this juridification process. And this investigation I mentioned above here has been looking at these things, and the base was to continue the forest policy idea like it is in Sweden, but it has to be seen in context with other streams nowadays. Yes, that was the last slide from me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Johan, to provide the overview of the forest situation, forest management, and policy in the Sweden. Okay. So next, I would like to invite Director General Adison Nutamrong, is the DG of the Royal Forest Department. So during the opening remarks, the Minister already briefly the forest management policy in Thailand. So we would like to hear more from the Director General Adison on Thailand forestry policy and challenges. So DG Adison, please.
Thank you, Dr. Yongyut, for your kind introduction. So, Excellency, distinguished participants, good morning and good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here with you today. So, I think I will spend too much time. I guess because I have about more than 20 slides as my staff prepare for me to talk with you today. But I try to speak as fast as I can to finish every slide. Otherwise, my staff will be very upset. First of all, may I introduce you. This is all the topics that I will talk with you all today, but I may not go into more details. I try to skip some of the things that not so interesting to you. But next slide, please. First, I would like to show you this the structure of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. You will see there are 3 clusters under the ministries, that and forestry is under the natural resources cluster on your left hand side in the green column. Right, next slide, please. Under the natural resources cluster, you see there are 4, actually 3 departments working on forestry. First is the Royal Forest Department, responsible for productive forest or economic forest. And the second is the Department of National Park, Wildlife and Plant Conservation is responsible for protected forest, something like national park, wildlife sanctuary, non-hunting area, something like that. Okay. And the third one is Department of Marine and Coastal Resources, that is mainly responsible for mangrove forest. And we have also one state enterprise, so-called Forest Industry Organization. This is the government state enterprise that working on plantation. There are so many plantation in Thailand. Especially teak. I think we have now more than 80,000 hectares of the teak plantation planted by the Forest Industry Organization. This is we are now open the market to the European countries, especially, but most of them we exported to USA and some Asian country. But we try to open more market in the European countries, like Sweden, also in the future. That is one point that can be discussed later on when we have a bilateral meeting. And next, I would like to talk about briefly about the some figures of the forest statistic in Thailand. You see, when I see the forestry situation in Sweden as the speaker before, you see, I see the figures of forest area, 30 years in Sweden is still no change, very good. And but for Thailand, you see, from 1973 to now, we have only 31.64% of the total land area under forest cover. But the decreasing rate is very sharp during the past 20 years. But the past 4-5 years, we can keep the forest as good. Next slide, please. This is show you the number of the protected area in Thailand. Let's see, the national park, we have 133 national parks all over the country, cover an area of 6.3 million hectares, and so on. This is all the protected area. Next slide, please. And I will talk a little bit about the national strategies and forest policies. This is the first time for Thailand to have national strategy. As in the past, the government have very short time to stay on the office. So we change the government quite often, and then the policy has been also changed. So this government thinks, if the government changes, the policy or the strategy should not be changed. So we have now the national strategy for 20 years, up to 2037. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay. These figures show you something about history of forest management in Thailand since the IFD was founded in 1896. During that time, the purpose of the IFD was to collect tax and revenues from the timber industry, especially the teak and Tectona grandis or Tectona grandis. After forest resources have declined due to several drivers, the national logging ban was enacted in 1989 to protect forest areas for functioning of ecosystems and environmental services. This means that the wood originated in Thailand will come from plantation only. In 2018, the Thai government has announced a national strategy to guide for the way forward. The forest policy is also being reviewed and revised. Next slide, please. National strategy which span from 2018 to 2037, as I mentioned earlier, consists of six key strategies. And among these six strategies, the strategy number 5 concerned with environmental friendly development and growth. One of the targets of this strategy is that 55% of the total land area shall be covered by 3 categories of forests at the end of year 2037. 55%, can you imagine? It's very hard tough for us to meet that target. That means within 55%, 35% must be maintained as protected area or protected forest, and 15% as productive or economic forest, and another 5% as a green area. Next slide, please. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment has reviewed and revised the forest policy in order to achieve and contribute to the target set in the national strategies. We have this forest policies in the 1985, and this is the National Forest Policy Committee chaired by the Prime Minister himself. So the target is set from 1985 until now. It's never been changed. That means 40% of forest, 40% of the total land area should be kept as a forest. And that means 25% should be protected area, protected forest, and 15% should be productive forest. Next slide, please. And Thailand aims to increase forest area from 31.64% of the country area to 40% as targeted in the forest policy. And by reforestation plan and financial mechanism, authorities have to work closely with communities in forested area to enhance their livelihood, provide income-raising options, and reduce the need for deforestation or harm to biodiversity. The national forest policy can be divided into 3 main categories. First is forest management, and second is forest production, utilization, and services, and also forest industry. And the third one is administrative system developments and forestry-related organization. Currently, the National Forest Policy Committee, which is chaired by the Prime Minister, is working on the master plan in order to implement these policies. Next slide, please. Next, I will show you some example on the program and activity that we did or we are doing in the forest sector and how it's linked to the sustainable development. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the forestry practices in Thailand, which includes forest protection, forest development, people participation, and etc. Can enable Thailand to preserve and maintain the forest areas, as shown in the red circle. See, between 2000 2013 to 2020, the forest area in Thailand is stable at the rate of approximately 32% of the total land area. We still need an addition more 8% of the forest area to reach our target of the forest policy. And this 8% increase must emphasize public participation for success and sustainable development. Next slide, please. In addition to the traditional rangers reconnaissance, IFD has tried to bring the technology to help protect forests. As shown here is called Smart Patrol System, which we collaborated with many organizations to share information, including the Geoinformatics and Space Technology Development Agency. Next slide, please. As mentioned in the forest policy, Thailand wants to promote 15% of the country as productive or economic forest. So there have been many efforts, both of the government and private sector, in order to achieve this goal while generating more income for the people. The forest standard and legality assurance system of timber are implementing and developing accordingly. The outdated Forest Act was revised 2 years ago, allowing trees planted on private land to be freely harvested and transported and exported. In addition, if farmers or businessmen wish to export such timber and timber products to other countries, the certificates given by IFD is needed to verify legal origin of timber. Next slide, please. This slide shows you the process of the legal timber production. This is the legal timber manufacturing process to ensure the legality of timber and wood products exported from Thailand. The process starts from the timber cutting at the plantation area to wood processing factories and then transported to the port for shipment. This is so-called IFD single window, so that we would be able to keep track of the timber everywhere it's moved. Next slide, please. The Loyal Forest Department also given priority on the participation in forest resource management. The Community Forest Act has been entered into force to ensure the people participation in forest management in accordance with their knowledge, tradition, practices, and the way of forest utilization. It is expected that to have 1.6 million hectares of community forestry in Thailand, which will benefit to more than 18,000 villages. Next slide, please.
Can you summarize this, DG Addison?
Yes, I will finish in just 1 or 2 minutes.
Thank you.
One thing, agroforestry has long been used in forest resource management in Thailand. So the late King Rama IX had given the theory. You may know that 3 kinds of trees with 4 benefits. This means growing 3 types of tree, and why we get a return in 4 benefits. The theory is believed to bring the forest back to the country, while people also happy with the win-win cooperation. Next slide, please. So another practice that Thailand has adopted in forest land management is the allocation of land. This is one of the main policy for government to solve the conflict problem with the people living in the forest land area. And we give them the right to use the land, but we don't give them the title. And this is one of the things that we are doing to solve the conflict between people and government. Next slide, please. So I don't know what are challenges at this moment, but I just like to to let you know that it's my dream to be there in Sweden one day. And we hope that Thailand and Sweden can be good partner for timber trade in the near future. And I think we are ready to talk with Sweden too. And as we are now working on the EU FLEGT, to set the agreement, to trade trade between Thailand and the European country. Thank you very much, Dr. Yongyut. So sorry that I spent more time than expected. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director General Anderson. So I'm also sorry to interrupt. So next we have the presentation from RECOP. So RECOP is the international organization based in Bangkok and has a lot of work in Southeast Asia and now have some work in Africa. So today we have Kun Warangkhana Ratana. Kun Warangkhana is the Thailand Country Program Director. So she will share with us about the perspective of RECOP on the community forest in Thailand. So Kun Warangkhana, please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me also do the screen sharing a minute. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, very clear. Go ahead.
โอเคค่ะเดี๋ยวสักครู่นะคะยังกดอันนี้ไม่ได้พอมันโอเค I need to remove this a bit. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak on behalf of RECOP and on behalf of Dr. David Forestry today. And also I'd like to address His Excellencies Walawut and also the Director General Addison, the ambassadors, Yon, Ambassador Kanchana, and the distinguished guests. I am working as a Thailand country directors, and today I'm going to present about community forestry in Thailand and focusing mainly on its contributions toward economy livelihoods of local people and how it contributes to the ecosystems and also for the green developments. For RECOP, for those who may not know about RECOP, I like to give a bit presentations. At RECOP, we believe in a future where people live equitably and sustainably in and beside healthy, resilient forests. We take long-term landscape-based and inclusive approach to helping local communities secure their lands and resource rights and stop deforestation, build alternative livelihoods, achieve gender equality, and combat climate change. And we have over 20 years experience. And I have to say that we have strong support long-term commitments from the governments of Sweden. And we have offices in 7 countries in Southeast Asia. And we help communities to achieve the sustainable development goals for poverty, hunger, environment, climate change, and gender. And definitely our enterprise is community forestry. And when we're talking about the landscape approach, so this is how we pictures of that approach. Actually, community forestry has many forms. And as you see that community forestry can happen in many types of forest lands. And the basis is actually that local people participate in decision makings. And local people means indigenous people, ethnic minorities, individuals and communities who have geographic, economic, social, and cultural relationship with local forest areas. And it can be in the protected areas or in the farms, as you can see. And as mentioned by the Director Generals, if we count number of people, I think over 10 million people in Thailand have dependent on the forests for their homes and also for their livelihoods. And what can communities forestry offer? So next, I'm going to present about the economic, environments, and social benefits of 3 community forestry initiatives that we support in Thailand. And these initiatives also have potential to mitigate global warming and prepare communities and ecosystem to adapt to climate change, and also to prevent the pandemics by protecting forests. The first case studies is about Bun Reang wetlands forest, and this area is received the support and award from Equator Prize. They received the award in year 2020. And this is like an example of how local people can sustainably manage the wetlands and mitigate impact from climate change. In 2015, the area was supposed to be converted to be special economic zones. And RECOP is part of the Bun Reang Wetland Forest Conservation Group that address and try to advocate to protect the community forests of 483 hectares from being converted, and now they can continue using these wetlands for their livelihoods. Bun Reang Community Forest wetlands located in Chiang Rai province, as you can see in the maps, and it's part of the Ing watershed, which have combination between like the upstream to downstreams rivers that long over 260 kilometers, and the water flow passing the province like Phayao to Chiang Rai in the north of Thailand, and it connected to Mekong rivers. Therefore, this is actually huge biodiversity areas of fish and other aquatic cultures. And after a lot of works, what actually these wetlands can contribute. So you can see numbers of high biodiversity, like we can count it over 276 species, including like fishes species, exotic species, food plants, medical plants, and from both the direct and indirect benefits. And in terms of the carbons, it over 20,000 tons of carbons that's sequestered in the 160 hectares of the wetlands. And from these benefits, as you can see that the incomes contribute to the village funds, and also they put a portion to reserve annually that they keep the monies to maintain the conservation and maintenance of the wetland. And with this, they can also convince the policy of the special economic zones to stop convert the lands. So that is one case, first case, that community forestry can be very powerful tools for the conservation and also for livelihoods. The second is the case of Kwan Kreng, or the Kwan Kreng peat swarms. It is located in the south of Thailand in a province called Nakhon Sri Thammarat. It covers over 21,000 rights, or 1,000 hectares, sorry. And it is the second largest peat swarm forest in the country. And as a peat swarm ecosystem, it has a very high capacity for the carbon sinks, and storing up to 58 million tons of carbons. And further from the carbon benefits, it also has a lot of benefits on the local livelihoods. It can provide over 152 villages incomes, and serving more than 150,000, hundreds thousands of people. And RECOP has support the local communities to restore the peat swarms and manage it sustainably. And through working with the schools, we integrate the peat swarm ecologies and management into their curriculums. And currently, villagers are working to scale up small enterprises based on the sage, jute, and other peat swarm materials, and they are preparing to provide ecotourism experiences. Another case, the last case, is about the teak plantations. As mentioned earlier, that community forestry also including smallholders, and they are very important in the landscape restorations. RECOP has experience of forest landscape restorations, which we use the market forces to combat climate change, restore degraded forests, and business partnership between forest communities and companies to plant production forests, make sustainable products, and access to markets. And so this is the example from Nan province. As you may know that Nan province, which is a northern province, has experienced deforestations. But this is important areas for many people in the countries because it contributes over 40% of waters to Chapaya River. And therefore, it's vital that we try to convert the situations and the role of farm forestry, smallholders, agroforestry are the keys here. However, we experienced that the reforestations in the past or the plantation promotion often experience the economic viable, that it cannot demonstrate the tangible result or the benefits to local people. The case that I'm presenting is the case of Santisuk district, which is a district in Nan province. The areas cover about 1% of teak. However, the farmers, they experience the poor farm management and quality of timber due to lacking of knowledge and also supports on how to do a better farm management. They end up harvested the teak at young age, and the profits mostly goes to the middle persons. And they use like clear cuttings techniques, which is perhaps not good for the environment. And they also like a return of like a very low price. Therefore, with this, they have no incentives to maintain for the farms, or maybe they will not continue growing the trees. Therefore,
can you wrap up your presentation, please?
Sure. Therefore, it is important that we need to support them in this. We help a lot of provide capacity in like stock assessment, also quality improvement, including connecting them to the private sectors. With this example, that we try to support the farmers to double the price and do the value additions by connecting with a private sector called Chalet to produce a wooden playgrounds that can use the small size timbers, which also can produce a better income for them. In order to achieve all these examples, and also to continue the importance of community forestry, we have to follow 5 principles. The first one is adaptive management and learning, meaning that communities and stakeholders have to be able to adjust their knowledge and capacity over the times. We also have to keep learning and cannot use only the static information. And second, it requires available of the natural resources, meaning that local community needs to have a good sums of forests, and also need to use the resources that enough for them to benefit. And the third, it also requires effective governance and participations. It means that it have to really be able to provide inclusive engagement of all, both women and youth or indigenous people in decision makings and implementation of community forestry plans. And fourth, the rights and institutions settings. So meaning that it need to have clear and secure rights in terms of tenure on their lands and also for their resources. And last is that it needs to address the community needs. So this is the key important factors that we can make sure that local people will continue practice community forests and help us to protect the forests of our countries and our world. So I like to end here that local people are the keys to the green developments, and they can also be very efficient, strong for the sustainable business opportunities, and also for the contribution of sustainable development goals if they are receiving support and there are enable factors for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Khun Warangkhana. So I would like to spend 1 or 2 minutes to wrap up the presentation of 3 speakers. So we see that the situation of the forest management and forest cover in Sweden and Thailand is quite opposite. So Sweden right now have almost 70% of forest cover and 75% owned by the private sector, particularly the individual people, while the government own only 19% of the forest cover. But in Thailand, we have 32%, and most of them are located in protected area. And both countries have the long-term development and policy to conserve the forest cover. But more or less, there are some polarized policy between conservation and development. Nevertheless, the forest resources contribute to the country, even though in different dimensions. For example, in Sweden, the forest industry contribute almost 10% of GDP, while in Thailand, agriculture and forestry have declining to contribute. So right now, it's only contribute to the local people who are living in the rural area, as Khun Warangkhana showed the three case study. And the people are the main driver to the success of the forest policy, either for wood industry or for the livelihood of the local people. So thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. Now I would like to turn microphone to Rosario to continue the panel discussion. And very sorry that I spent more time than the program. Rosario, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Jong-Jut. I mean, I understand it was very interesting, so it was very difficult to interrupt our panelists. Well, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I have the thrilling task to be the moderator of the panel discussion session for people and private companies, which already suggests that we are going to be talking about balances and trade-offs of stakeholders' involvement and the role of the different forest ecosystem services. And the way it's going to work, I think we have until 11:40 more or less. We have 6 panelists, 6 speakers, and I will introduce you one by one, and I will ask you a question. You have between 3 to 5 minutes to answer, so you need to condense a little bit your answer. And I don't want to be too rigid, so if other panelists feel the strong need to contribute to the question, please do. Otherwise, you can send, and also the rest of the audience, your questions to the Q&A box, and we will try to address them. And you can write in English, in Swedish or Thai. I don't understand Thai, but I have some, unfortunately, but I have some colleagues that will help. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first panelist, Björk Merkel, who is an international coordinator of the Swedish Forest Agency and has been involved in many international forest-related issues during the last 20 years. So he has a lot of international perspective. And please, Björn, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. And would you like me to answer some of the pre-put questions, or would you like me just to have?
I will ask you a question so you can elaborate on that, but if you want to do a short introduction, if I have been missing something about you.
Okay, no, but I just would like to say that I'm very happy to be part of this Thailand-Swedish cooperation. And I have memories because after the tsunami, Thailand and Sweden got closer together, and there was a joint plan of action that was created in 2013. And in that, forestry was one sector that was identified as a cooperation area. Mm-hmm. And it was also meant to be a delegation from the Thai Royal Forestry Department coming to Sweden on a study trip in 2013. Unfortunately, that was not materialized because it has to be cancelled for various reasons. But so I mean the cooperation between Sweden and Thailand has been ongoing for quite some time, as we also heard from previous speakers.
Yes, which is excellent. So I would like you to elaborate a little bit on the role of the Swedish Forest Agency in linking and the importance of, in the pushing forward the forestry agenda. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the Swedish Forest Agency is a rather old organization. It's a government agency and with the main task to implement the forest policy, as we heard from my colleague Johan Eriksson today. And our main task is to implement the forest policy that has been decided by the parliament. So therefore, it's rather natural that the agency, through various means, is promoting sustainable forest management in Sweden. And when we were established, our main focus was to carry out advice and extension service towards forest owners regarding how to manage their forests. And in that time, as we saw in one of the pictures, the main focus was on establishing of new forests after final felling. Today, our extension service is more diverse, I would say. But I would also like to tell you that the Swedish Forest Agency has been instrumental in making changes in forest management related to various policy changes over the years. And we have carried out a number of forest information campaigns focusing on sustainable forest management. One was in the beginning of the 1990s, which was called Richer Forest. That was focusing on natural consideration in forest management. We have also, during the 1990s, a campaign on cultural heritage protection in forest management. And that was to make people aware of that there have been people been living in the forest and have left tracks of their living in our forests. And then was also focusing on how to protect those tracks or remnants for the future generations. And also in the shift of the millennium, we had another campaign called Greener Forests, which was balancing wood production and nature conservation towards a sustainable society. So I think that the Forest Agency have been involved in changing the various forest-related agents that we can see. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bjorn. That was very interesting. So if any of the panelists has a question for Bjorn, maybe something to complement, okay? Then I must go ahead and introduce our next speaker, which is Dr. Becharut Sukumoer. I hope I pronounce it properly. So he's currently the head of the Department of Agriculture and Resource Economics at Kasetsart University in Bangkok. He has also extensive academic background in agriculture, rural development, and resource economics from both the Kasetsart University in Bangkok and the Institute of Social Sciences at The Hague, the Netherlands. So please, Mr. Richard. So do you want to add something to your presentation? Otherwise, I will address a question to you.
Yes, you can address the question to me. Yes, please.
Okay, so from the academic point of view, what do you think are the problems with forestry in Thailand? So highlight the main challenges, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the questions and also the invitations. I think the benefits of the forest and forest restoration is very clear, especially in terms of ecological service. But the problem, in my view, as an agricultural economist, the problem is the payment for ecosystem service in Thailand is unclear. That is mean we have very few effective markets for the forest or tree plantation in Thailand. That affect the decision making of the people, especially the farmer who have the land and who also have the problem of the poverty and also high debt. So the problem, therefore, is how to develop the effective market for the forest and tree plantations, not only in terms of private land ownership, but also in terms of community forest land, as Kun Warankana has already mentioned. However, there are some initiatives in Thailand which I would like to share with you. First of all, I would like to share the case of tree bank network. They call tree bank network. This group of the farmer, they look at the forest as they call welfare saving, because in Thailand we don't have the strong welfare system like in Sweden. But they feel that if they grow the tree and also they can sell it maybe 20 years or 3 years, 30 years in the future as the timber, they can save the money. So this group of the people, they are very strong in growing this plant tree as the saving for their elderly life and also for the next generations. However, this initiative also have some limitations, because investing in the tree is quite a long-term investment, 30 years or 20 years or 30 years. So it's not easy for the local people. I also find some initiative in Thailand by integrating agroforestry. Right, you have this kind of sting bee farm, stingless bee farm, agrotourism, or some kind of this product from agroforestry, which can now normalize the income that can earn from the agroforestry better than looking for 20 years in the future for the timbers alone. So this is something that we need to improve in Thailand. And we also have some initiative from the government side as well that I would like to share for maybe 1 or 2 minutes more. That is the government already allow the farmers to use the tree as the collateral for using a transaction, including for the loan. So this is very good opportunity for the farmer who grow tree in order to access to the financial credit, especially formal credits. However, in Thailand, the main problem is not access to the credit right now. Normally, farmer can also already access to the formal credit. The problem is higher debt, especially after the COVID-19 crisis. So maybe if we look at tree as the collateral and we look at tree as the investment, so we can use the tree or the forest in another way around in order to be the, we can say like debt restructuring program. So we can set up some kind of area for the farmer who can grow the tree and then can repay their debt in the future. So this is something that we need to improve a lot in case of Thailand in order to promote the kind of forest area, especially in the private owned land. The last, I would like to say that if we can link this kind of forest benefit to different social development goals, we can also have the let's say the integration, both in terms of better poverty reductions, reduce the household debt, having the social welfare at the same time. We will having more forests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, great examples of how to balance the involvement of different stakeholders, from the smallest to the largest, and different forest ecosystem services. So it was very fascinating, very innovative. So keep doing such a great job, actually. And thank you very much. So now I want to introduce our next panelist, Dr. Sara Gräslund. And she works at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, the SLU. And more specifically, she's leading the SLU Global, which is a unit in our Vice Chancellor's office that supports researchers and other actors throughout our university in their collaborations for global development. So she has a lot of experience in that aspect. And Sara, do you want to introduce something else more about you, or otherwise I will ask you a question?
Well, thank you, Rosario, and it's very nice to be here. I'll let you go straight to your question.
Okay, so I would like to hear more about what are the opportunities and the approaches to create successful collaborations between academic grounds, between two countries, for example, Sweden and Thailand.
Well, there are lots of great opportunities, and I could just first mention that there is already quite a lot of collaboration, and we have during the last few years, there has been about 20-30 scientific publications written between SLU researchers and researchers in Thailand per year. So there is quite a lot of a nice diversity of collaborations ongoing all the time. And we also have this student exchange program with Kasetsart University that is also something that is already there and very nicely can be built upon. Yeah, I just say great opportunities, and it would be quite easy for us as well to engage researchers, and we have researchers within almost all forestry related fields, from natural science to social science and humanities as well. And I'm sure that it does not take much to engage people in different kinds of collaborations with Thai actors.
So could we say that a multidisciplinary approach could be a good one? So people with different views.
Yeah, definitely. And if I can go into some of the experiences that we have from different collaborations, I would like to mention 4 points. And the first is that it's really important to enable ownership and participation of local communities. And this is something that Rikoft, for example, spoke very nicely about a while ago. And this is also something that we struggle with in Sweden to make this work. And for example, we know that our own planning processes are very challenging for indigenous peoples and local communities. And we also have a lot to learn about how those processes can be improved in order for people to participate in a reasonable way when it comes to how much time that is allocated, and also to have a better landscape approach in those planning processes. So that is something that we know from research that we need to improve to make it work better. The second point I want to mention is that also that it's really important to have an intersectoral integration, and today it's often very clearly planned. For example, you have forestry very separate from mining plans and plans for energy, and that is often very tricky for local communities because they are faced with all the development in the different sectors, and having a better communication between the different sectors is that usually helps a lot. And the third point I'd like to raise is to make the invisible visible. And often when you have land that is seen as unused lands, it is usually people there in some form, and it is very good to try to see what kind of economic activities is already there, what kind of livelihoods are there. And if you see what it is, for example, it can be timber production or other livelihoods, and sometimes it can be possible to support those activities and help them formalize the activities that are already there as a way of supporting local communities to buy into the forestry development in the area. And then the fourth point I wanted to raise is about local small-scale industries, and we have really good experience from working with supporting local communities in jointly for a small group that they can start working as entrepreneurs, for example, with mobile small-scale sawmills as a way of creating more of the value addition at the local level. And then you can also be quite responsive to the market and add new models over time. This is something that we've worked with partners, for example, in Mozambique and Ethiopia. And it's techniques that are also commonly used in Sweden. So that is something that we'd be happy to discuss more about.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Very interesting. And now we have to move to the next panelist, Mr. Frederick Clunk. So who obtained the PhD in forestry, I presume, from the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences. Is right? Yeah. And Frederick has been employed since 2000 at Sveaskog forest industry, but you have been also a chairman at the Arboreal AB. I have otherwise experiences as a head of market area south, regional manager, and head of production for Got the Land, and much more. So I think you bring into the panel the point of view of the private companies sector, and I would like to hear from you a very simple, very easy question: how to balance economic value and conservation restoration of our forests?
That's a very good question, and that's what we do every year and every day of our business. Sveaskog, my forest company, owned by the Swedish state, and the other forest companies are certified according to FSC, PEFC, which are environmental certificates ensuring that we take into account the local opinions, that we take into account nature conservation, that we take into account the future values of a good growing forest, for example. That's in the certificates. Very important. And we also have very strong commitments in the Paris Agreement, in the Swedish regulations, EU regulations, which are moving now in the Green Deal. It's very important for us to meet up with these demands, so that we can also both take the climate benefit from the forest in form of sequestration of carbon or replacing fossil products, very important in the European community. It's also very important that we can use, that we can invest in our forest land to adapt it to future climate. It will be very costly for the forest owners to increase tree breeding, to increase variation in the forest landscape to meet the future climate. So it's very good, very important to have a long-term perspective of the forest ownership. And I think that goes for all of the forest companies. It's been built in since the forest legislation from 1903, which we heard about earlier. So I would say climate adaptation, biodiversity development, and economic forestry goes hand in hand. So it's very much for all of the companies to deal with, and especially my company, which is owned by the Swedish state. We are expected to be ahead in this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frederick. I mean, it's very, very nice, very important to hear that the company, as Sveaskog, has in its agenda other forest ecosystem services than just wood production or some economic value products, but instead that you also care about biodiversity and conservation. I mean, you have a long-term vision, which is very, very relevant. And at the end is what the society is demanding now.
That's very important.
Yes. Thank you very much. So we'll continue to our next panelist. That's Mr. Hokan Larson, who has been employed at Södra since 1994 and has been part of Södra's group management since 2013. And during his employment, he has held various positions as forest director, regional manager, production manager, and project manager IT. So, and recently, Hokan has had time even to start his own consultancy company. So, Hokan, do you want to add something to your CV? Or otherwise I will address you another question.
No, I can take the question, but I will also reflect some about these very interesting presentations, but please put the question.
Okay, we do it then in that order. So, from the point of view, from your point of view, how small companies and individual owners can contribute to the forestry business? And what can they do to profit yet preserve the forest resources they depend on? So it's related to the question to Frederick. Let's go deeper into it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this initiative and the invitation. It was very interesting presentations, and especially I listened, of course, for the conditions for the smallholders and this local economy. As you mentioned, Rosario, I represent Södra, and Södra is the largest forest owners association in Sweden, then with 53,000 members who owns mills and both in pulp and in sawn goods and also energy sectors. And we heard from Johan here that half of the forest land in Sweden is owned by about 330,000 private owners, smallholders. They stand for about, I think, 60% of the supply of wood for the industries in Sweden. I will say that those companies also stands for long-term sustainability and for diversity in different goals with their forests and how to manage them. Some wants to perhaps have needle trees, some wants broadleaf, some wants beautiful views in the forest. Some wants forest for good elk hunting, perhaps. I saw an elk in some picture also. But I think everyone wants to leave something better to the next generation than that they received from their parents or whom they got estates from. And as Frederick said, most of the forest owners, also those smallholders, are certified through PFC or FSC. I think an important factor behind the development of Swedish forest industry is the cooperation and education for those 330,000 smallholders, often family enterprises. And today I lead a project for Södra that aims for a cooperative strategy containing how to continue to be a successful, attractive association for smallholders. And that's a very important thing. And I think it was very interesting to hear from your promotion of private forests and supporting smallholders then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice insights in the question. And as a geneticist, I must say that leaving to the next generation, as you said, sounds perfect and the way to go, actually. So thanks for the effort from Södra. If I understood, it's 33,000 members?
53,000, yeah.
That's a large consortium. So we move, because time is ticking, to the next panelist, last but not least. Mr. Mahasan Tieravarut. So he's currently a managing director of Siam Forestry. So Mr. Mahasan has an extensive background in the logistics and packing industry, an alumni of Chulalongkorn University and Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok. So Mr. Mahasan is trained industrial engineer with a specialization in manufacturing system management. So very interesting perspective then we're gonna get from you, Mr. Mahasan. And at first, I will also ask you, do you want to add something more to your CV or want to raise some aspects? Otherwise, I will post your question.
Okay, thank you. I think better for your question.
Mm-hmm. So give us some insights about the local empowerment for sustainable forestry in Thailand.
First of all, I have to say that we are pulp and paper manufacturing, so we consume about 2.5 million tons of eucalyptus log that grow from our plantation, small. Most of them come from small scale farmer. Right now, small scale farmer, they don't, our eucalyptus plantation seem to be not competitive with the cash crop, so they have to grow eucalyptus along the canal or along the paddy field. So in that case, some kind of certification for forest product like a FSC cannot be applied for that wood that come from canal or forest product. So we are now talking with the FSC Thailand to promote that such a wood should be certified by FSC also, so they can get more benefit from to be the FSC wood. And also we provide them the seeding, the good seeding, and we talk with the local government to support the community to grow the eucalyptus, and the community can harvest and send them to us. Okay, thank you.
So just one more short question, because you were very efficient answering. So I thought I'm also curious to know about how have private companies in Thailand helped with forest restorative processes in the country?
Okay, as I mentioned, that we have to certify FSC, and for that reason, we provide financial support to the local community forest, and also we have a reserve forest area in our own plantation. Also, it's about 700 hectares right now. The forest reservation area in our plantation. And also we develop our hybrid clone of eucalyptus that have a yield double from in the past, in the year 2004, compared with now. We have a double yield of the plantation. So that means we need less land to grow our plantation and help deforestation also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds an interesting aspect. To need less land actually sounds like the opposite of what usually you hear. So, and that's because you have better silviculture practices, even improved material, genetically improved material.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Mr. Mahasan and the rest of the panelists. We are right on time to finish our panel discussion. So I think here is where I will pass the voice to our main coordinator. Sorry. So, Sudhi, maybe it's time to move to the general discussion.
Yes, thank you everyone. That was a great panel discussion. Now we would like to move on to the open discussion. And now I have everyone on the same gallery view. So if we can do some answering for the questions. Do you see the Q&A box, Rosario and Kun Dong-Yut?
Yes.
We have selected the list of questions there that perhaps you can read it out. And if any one of our panelists think that they have answer to it, then you can raise your hand and you can answer. It would be great to have this discussion forward. Thank you.
Okay, Kun Suthi. So in connection to the Larson presentation and some panelists, so we talk about the smallholder involvement in the forest management. So I led the forestry statistics in Sweden and found that 70% of forest management, they obtain either FSC or PEFC certification. It means they meet the legal standard. But in Thailand, we have less than 30 sites that obtain the legal standard, or less than 2% of the total forest area for production. So Hassan, you have a lot of experience to work with the smallholder in Sweden. So you have any recommendation for the Thai farmer who go the forest in the backyard in small area? How they can apply or obtain any kind of the certification to ensure that the wood have the legality?
Is the question how the smallholders could work with the certification standards?
Yeah, because the FSC is quite expensive and the smallholder cannot afford the cost.
For the certification systems and the work with the certification, you mean? Yeah. Because in Sweden, and I don't know with respect, I don't know the Thailand forestry and the private side there, but in Sweden and what we work with in Södra is this umbrella, as we call it, for the smallholders. We have an umbrella. I don't know a better word for the smallholders, so they can join the certification system, where Södra, in my case, is the guarantee for the umbrella and the certification system, so the smallholders can have afford to join the certification system, and they don't have to pay. Each forest owner don't have to pay for the certification systems and all the things you have to do, because the umbrella takes the cost down. If that is an answer, I hope it is. Or put another question.
Yes, very good. Khun Mahasan, can you contribute to this question about the certification of the smallholder plantation?
I think in Thailand we can use like a group certification. Group certification is right now as our company we use the group certification. The smallholder can join with us and they don't have to absorb the high cost of certification. We will manage that.
And if I can put one more thing there, in Södra, you as a smallholder also get a higher provision or a higher payment for your deliveries on pulpwood or on timber if you are certified then.
Well, through the questions, I can see that there is an interest about balancing economy and sustainability in terms of the ecosystem, the conservation, forest restoration. So one colleague from Thailand was wondering if the model, the Swedish model for balancing forest production and environment could work also as well in Thailand, and maybe what efforts are being done to implement it. I will address it to any of our panelists from Thailand.
Maybe Dr. Dedrat, can you share, can you comment on this question?
Yes, thank you. I think it's possible that we can follow the Swedish model in combining both forestry and also the commercial in terms of forestry and also in terms of sustainable development goal. Not only in terms of ecology, but as I already mentioned, it's also benefit for the poor people as well, because for me, the tree, the forest is high value, and it can also reduce the risks for the farmer and also for the poorest household. So that's why I think the combination between these two goals can be done. However, we need to invest. First of all, we need to change the viewpoints that we normally in Thailand separate between the forest protection and also the economic development. But if we learn from our Swedish friend, we can make this together. So the first thing that is to change this viewpoint. The second thing that is to allow all people to enter into this kind of combination. Just like Mahasan also mentioned about the group certification, that is something that we can reduce the barrier for the local people, for the smallholder, in order to join the benefits from this kind of forest sector. So I think if we change the viewpoints and then we look at the barrier and we try to solve the barrier, we may have some more initiative in case of Thailand in order for the smallholder to join, then it's possible.
Thank you, Dr. Dedrat. So I like your presentation previously about the encouragement of the local people to participate in the forest plantation. However, it takes some time, right? Before we harvest either 20 year or 30 year, and soft loan is very important. But one barrier that we are facing right now is very difficult to increase forest cover from 32% to 40% as written in the National Forest Policy. As you see, most of land right now that the people occupy either in the high mountain, they are in the national reserve of forest. So it's quite difficult for the bank or the business people to give the loan to the local people to grow the forest, because there is the insecurity that they can harvest the tree after long-term plantation. This is different from the cassava, sugarcane, or others. So based on your economic background, and you have involved in a lot of the forestry formulation. So what are the key factors of policy and driver to push to increase the forest cover, particularly the production forest that we have very low right now?
Yes, in case of the absence of financial market, I mean, they don't have the land security, therefore they cannot go to the bank, to the commercial bank, in order to get the support for forest plantations. In this case, first of all, I think agroforestry can be the options. I found some various areas that they can earn quite a good income from the plant that they grow together with the tree, the small plants, something like vegetable and fruit. So if we make this kind of good combination, it can be the answer for the local people. Second thing, that is the credit from the commercial may be difficult in this case, but the credit from the government institution can be possible, especially if the government put together the tree as some kind of so-called the repayment, the debt repayment. I mean, instead of payment in terms of money, the government may ask the farmer to payment back in terms of the tree. In other words, it means for 20 years, for example, then the government will get the forest back after they stay for 20 years. So after that, they may stay together. I mean, they continue stay in that land, or maybe they move to another land, because 20 years is quite a long period to in this type of world of how to say, in the uncertain future. So if the government asks them to plant and keep the forest for 20 years, then they can also we can also invest in the forest, and then it can return back to the national forest as well.
Thank you.
We have also one question from Siva Ramasamy, who's wondering if Sweden, okay, some are talking in the background. So if Sweden and Thailand are focusing also on growing or adding value to the forest. So forest not only wood, but there's also other aspects that can be utilized, exploited economically. In the case of Siva, he is asking about herbs in the forest for future medicines. Maybe that's more in Thailand, maybe well, also in Sweden, the exploitation economically, the mushrooms, and there is there initiatives to support such type of ideas coming from the communities? I could ask any of the, well, any panelist actually is welcome to answer this question. Anyone who
Khun Varankana can answer this question, because you are expert in community.
There's many questions about added value and balancing the forest economy system.
Thank you very much for the questions. Yes, we do have several examples that how community forests can contribute on like herbal benefits, and also in terms of economies that local people can earn from such species.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
And however, the issues like
okay, the voice is cutting now and then.
Can you hear me well?
Now, yes.
Okay, I think the issues is yes, we do use other species like timbers also from community forestry. However, the commercialization because the most of those resources located in community forest areas where the law is just released in 2019 and yet to actually define on what is the commercial scale that local people can utilize their resources. And without further investment and developments, I think the herbs that very potentials in many ways, it may not really have like a full maximization or further develops. And it importance in this area that it should be allows both local people and investors to explore more that how they can bring out the economic potential from these resources. Yeah.
Thank you. There is another question in the Q&A box about the concept of two equal goals for production and environment in Sweden. So this one presented by Johan Eriksson. I'm wondering, is he still here? Otherwise, any panelists from the Sweden can elaborate this concept goals about the forest production and environment.
Sorry, I didn't get the question really. Could you repeat?
The question in the Q&A box about the concept of two equal goals, forest production and environment. So during your presentation, you have a limited time to explain or to elaborate. Can you provide further information about this concept?
It's more like a framework concept. It's not very precise, measurable. We don't have any like measurable objects for production or environment. In parallel to this, there is an environmental goal system in Sweden that's very, I would say, ambitious and with quite many goals, some vision-based, some more precise. So it's a bit linking between these sides. This investigation I also mentioned, it has some ideas and some suggestions about having more clear goals on the production side also. But I think this model is quite old. It's, like I mentioned, from '94. So if you would aim to establish something, I think a more modern framework is to start from sustainability and these concepts and ideas, and from that develop more. It was from this production-oriented forest policy in 70s, 90s to change it, to get environmental more clear into it, and then establish this framework model. Just a way of illustrating it. I think we are in step to developing it now, so not copy, I would say. Did I answer question, if I got it right?
Yes, thank you.
So we don't have many minutes left, but I would still like to raise one question we got in the Q&A box by Yaredat Ruan Charoen, who is asking, what are your thoughts on the biomass power plant? Anyone who wants to take a step from? So is there any opinion about the biomass power plants? Do you think is environmentally proper, or can it help sustainability, or the opposite?
I would like to add a little because we have been a little bit delayed from the beginning. So we would like to have this open discussion until 12:15 Stockholm time or 17:15 in Bangkok time. So we have 15 more minutes to discuss. So you don't have to be in a rush. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kun Suthi. So I still see the DG Addison still with us. So there is one question to DG Addison. So the question is, the eucalyptus plantation and acacia plantation categorized as the production forest or conservation forest?
Dr. Yongyut, is considered production forest or economic forest?
Yeah. So the question is, the eucalyptus and acacia plantation classified as the production forest that we can utilize or the conservation forest?
It's considered a productive forest or economic forest, not conservation forest.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would like to post also quite a general question that I wonder myself. And our countries have some similarities and some differences, and differences are welcome diversity. But I wonder how we approach our forest policy. Who do we listen? Are we listening to external international organizations? Are they leading that? Or is our politicians, our scientists, our citizens? Do we listen to all of them? In what extent? So I know it's quite a general question. So we can start with some of our panelists from Thailand. No one wants to take the take forward.
Can you repeat again?
Yeah. So when we decide, who decides our forest policies? Are we listening only when we build the map? Are we only listening international organizations? Are we listening our politicians, our scientists, our citizens, even minorities? I mean, how we build that the map? I mean, or in your opinion, how should it look like? Who should we listen to? Maybe it's not so simple to answer, but I'm sure you have ideas.
So, DG Addison, so the question is, who formulate the forest national policy?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, my apologies that I couldn't catch your word clearly. So as we have the National Forest Policy Committee, as I mentioned, that is chaired by the Prime Minister, and under this committee there are several subcommittees who work on different fields of study. Okay, and before that, the subcommittee will draft the policy first in each direction, and then they come up to the consideration of the committee. And actually, the secretary of this committee is the Royal Forest Department. So the Royal Forest Department is the main organization to study the problem and the situation first, and then we draft the policy, and then we distributed the policy to all stakeholders to criticize, and then come back to the committee again to final decision before we propose this to the cabinet meeting. That is the final decision to formulate the policy.
Thank you very much.
I would like to add, Rosa. So before these two formal committee and the working committee and the national policy, so they organize a lot of the consultation workshop and meeting with the multi-stakeholders, such as the local peoples, academia, and the private sector, social citizens, to criticize and to have the comment. So the whole process, I think, takes almost 2 years before they submit to the cabinet for approval.
Mm-hmm. So maybe Björn Merkel, do you want to add something from the Swedish side, or Sarah Graslund?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I think the process itself is very similar to what's the process that has been described in Thailand. But of course, even though as a policymaker, you are making policies, and as a policymaker, you have to listen to various interests. So the various stakeholders is very important, and also the research society is also very important to take into account when deciding upon a new policy, for instance. But also the international movement, so the international discussions and the debate that is ongoing do also influence the policy making itself. But at the end of the day, it is the policymaker that do the changes, and sometimes even do the research society come up with some evidence that shows something. Maybe the policymaker at the end will not listen to that because he or she thinks that this would probably be a better way forward, and probably I will be elected for the next election as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Morgan, I have one personal question to you. So I read the concept notes of the workshop and found that right now Sweden ranked up one of the 166 countries that achieved 4 SDG goals. So congratulations for the government of Sweden. And Thailand ranked at the 41 of the total country participate in this one. Can you give any idea or comment why the Swedish government have achieved a lot of a lot of goals and contribution to the SDG, because you have involved in a lot of the international collaboration and meeting. Do you follow my question?
Was it who was the question put to?
The question is right now Sweden already achieved 4 sustainable development goals by the UN, right? And the forest industry contributes a lot of this goal. For example, the SDG goal 1, the poverty reduction, SDG goal 3, good health, and SDG 7, clean energy, SDG 12, responsible consumption. So what are the key mechanisms or the something like the administration to drive your country to achieve this goal, particularly the contribution from forestry?
And you was it to me you put the question, or was it to?
Either you Morgan. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can start then.
Yeah.
Since the Sustainable Development Goals was developed in 2015, I think it was. I think that Sweden has been very committed to be able to implement those 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and from that perspective, I think we have been trying to look into the national concept. What can we do within our own borders to be able to implement these Sustainable Development Goals, and what can we do to help other countries and the international society to be implementing those goals. So I think that has been kind of the core, and therefore we have been working quite intensively with these development goals to be able. And I mean, if you go, they are very well known in elementary schools and so on and so forth. So we have been working quite intensively with those goals to make awareness of that they are there, and how to be able to achieve these goals until 2030. Thank you.
And as a company in Södra, we have those goals in our strategies, and try to put up achievements and goals for the most relevant goals there.
So Björn, following what you were saying about education, so schools are much aware of the Sustainable Development Goals, at least in Sweden, I think that's the case. So, and I would like to discuss briefly about the importance of education, actually, for the future sustainability. So is there a specific effort being done in Thailand also to educate the future generations in forest sustainability? And I don't know to who to address this question, but probably you can.
Yes.
Someone.
I think yes, I think it's very important for build up the knowledge and the learning about the forest ecology and also in terms of forest products. For example, in case of wood product, Thai new generation, they have very little knowledge about the wood product because for example, my house, we already turned into concrete, not like my grandfather's house anymore. So this kind of knowledge is very important, not only in terms of growing forest, but also in terms of utilizing forest products, including for example, like the herbal medicine and other forest ecosystem products. So that is my contribution.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have a special question from the ambassador. She would like to learn more about how Sodra help small forest owners in selling and marketing, as well as the role of Sodra in developing new innovation for forestry.
Yes, Sodra was founded in 1938 to strengthen the smallholders' force of negotiation, of, if we could call it so, to get value for the trees. And that is a main issue for Sodra today also, to buy the saw timber, the pulpwood, the logs from its owners, and to collect the volume and create a force in negotiation to get the best market price for the tree. And there Sodra also have its own industry, so it could produce and keep the value added to the members also. That's one thing. Innovation is also very important strategic goal for Sodra, to keep the value on the trees, not only tomorrow, also in 20 years, 50 years. So Sodra has a budget, I think about $10 million a year in innovation, and also cooperative projects with scientists and schools and so on. So very, very important strategic goals for Sodra.
That is really interesting to hear. Are there any other Swedish panelists who would like to add on how Sweden in general contribute to this effort? Perhaps Frederick or Sarah or Björn?
Yes, I can add on to Håkan's opening here. Sodra is a very impressive forest owners corporation, not only forest holding, but also world level industry in sawmills and pulp mills. It has been very important for us as a big forest owner in southern Sweden, Sodra keeping up the prices for pulpwood, for example. Sveaskog is a forest owning company with no industries. So we benefit a lot from Sodra's power in negotiation also, actually. So it's, I think in Sweden, I would like to add, my point is that this combination of strong private forest owners, 50% of the forest land, the state forest company, Sveaskog, 15%, and the private forest companies, 25%. It makes a strong combination in building new technique for both forestry and for the forest industry. By breeding trees together for the future. As I say, very important now with the climate change. We need to increase this tempo. So we have a strong research organization together, the Skogforsk. So I think this is a strong unity between different actors in the forest sector has been very important for the development of and the technology development and the now digital development and development towards the market, both as separate companies but also benefiting from each other's progress.
That is really great to hear. The ambassador also have another question regarding the strategy to empower small foresters, because I think we do have a lot of problems with that in Thailand, with the small forester contributing into the forest industry. So we would like to know some of the few strategies that that Sweden has done in order to include and empower them. If any one of you would like to have an opinion on this, it would be great to hear what you have in mind.
I can. Yes, I can.
Definitely.
Okay, can hang on. I think I get very happy when I hear the plans that involves the community, that involves the local people. Still today, one of the big benefits of the forestry and the forest industries of Sweden is that the benefit is on the countryside. It is 10% of the product of the land, but it's a much larger proportion of income in the inland of northern Sweden, in the highlands of southern Sweden, and so on, where forestry and the value from the forest product industry is very large. So I think this to always have the aim on bringing value to the local people, to the countryside it is very important, and it's one of the big benefits of forestry, I would say.
That is very great. Okay, Hokan.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of creating confidence in the future, and I think it's remarkable that forest owners invest thousands of dollars per hectare in silviculture, something they can't get outcome from in 30, 40 years perhaps. This takes a lot of confidence in the future with stable long-term condition, as well as industry that keeps investing, and education and knowledge in the forest owners' sites. So I will stop there.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I interrupted quite suddenly. Dr. Rosario and Professor Yongyut, do you have anything else do you want to add to the open discussion?
I just have one question to Sala. So Sala, you already have the project collaboration for the student exchange between SLU and Kasetsart University, which we have only one faculty of forestry in Thailand. So after you listen to the policy maker and the DG of the Royal Forest Department and the case study from the community forestry, so what are the opportunities that both institutions, SLU and Kasetsart University or Forestry Agency in Sweden and Royal Forest Department can work together in the future after we have more than 150-year collaboration? Sala, please.
Yeah, I think there are great opportunities to work together, and also the different kinds of international collaborations that we do them because it actually increases the quality of our own work. So it is really something that we value highly. Working together with other countries also supports us in seeing our own context with new eyes and getting very important knowledge and inspiration for how we can do things differently as well. So I think throughout this, it's really interesting to listen to the discussions here today, and also to see, how different kind of forestry is classified, for example, in the different countries, and how you look at community involvement, and how you see plantations versus natural forests, etc. And there are I think a lot of really interesting discussions where we can work together in the future to both strengthen our forestries for prosperous development of the countries. Really good opportunities.
Thank you.
Well, I will just follow with what Sarah is saying. There are great opportunities for collaboration, and I just hope that this panel discussion has stimulated ideas and for future collaborative projects. And of course, from my perspective as Vice for Internationalization, I will invest, and I want to continue the discussion about students change, teachers change, researchers change, and that's definitely something we can make it become true, and have a very active collaboration in that respect. So that's my wish for what's coming next.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I think that summarized up this discussion part very nicely. Thank you, Dr. Rosario and Professor Yongyut for being our moderator. And I would like to thank you, all our panelists and all our speakers. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. We are 20 minutes behind the schedule. So I would like to wrap this up quickly so that everyone here in Sweden can go for lunch, and in Thailand, we can go for dinner. So once again, thank you, everyone. That was a great session we had in exploring the forestry sector of the two countries, and we hope that the knowledge that has been shared today will pave the way for a greater collaboration between the two countries. And I'm very happy to hear that there are already some suggestions for collaboration between the academia. So I hope that will go even further from here. And I would also like to remind everyone that after this, we will produce an outcome document within the next couple of weeks. And we will send out the copy to everyone, including our attendees. After this, you will also receive a feedback form to your email, and all your feedbacks will be greatly appreciated so that we can improve our future work here at the embassy. So thank you very much. For now, we will have a, thank you all the panelists. I will take the floor from here. I hope everyone have a great the rest of the day. We still do have a little presentation from Dr. Manop. He is a counselor from the Thai embassy in Brussels. This one is a little bit extra special bit that we want to give to our attendees and our panelists if you wish to stay longer. But if you want to leave, if you have any other agendas, you are welcome to do so, but you can also sit in and listen. So Dr. Manop will, excuse me, let me take the floor. Okay, so Dr. Manop will be he is the Minister Counselor of the Office of Science and Technology in Brussels. He will be here to inform everyone about a New Horizon Europe program. It is a tool for science research collaboration between agencies and universities. So this will be a good way to summarize the collaboration between the two countries. So thank you again, everyone, the panelists, for being here today. And now I will pass the floor to Dr. Manop. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much. Yes, distinguished guests, and I will try to share my screen now. Let me.
Could you see my screen?
Not yet, Dr. Manop.
Okay,
if you want, I can share the screen as well. I have your presentation prepared.
Okay.
Do you want me to share my screen or?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. Yes, I will. Okay, here I have your, oh, sorry. Do you see the presentation now?
Yes, yes, thank you very much.
Perfect.
Yes, good afternoon from the Office of Science and Technology in Brazil, and it's under Royal Thai Embassy in Brazil and Thailand mission to the EU. First of all, I would like to thank the Royal Thai Embassy in Stockholm for allow me for me to have opportunity to share with you with the Horizon Europe, which is the opportunity for the collaboration on research and innovation between Thailand and Sweden, especially in the topic which is relevant to our discussion today. Yes, as I mentioned, for my content, I would like to introduce my office a little bit. Next, and then I will cover the Horizon Europe in a big picture. And then the last one is the core and funding opportunity. Next, please. Yes, next, please. Yes, basically, the Office of Science and Technology in Brazil is the organization under the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research, and Innovation, which is responsible for the collaboration between Thailand and Europe, in the field of science, technology, and innovation. Next, please. The office has been working closely with both European partner and Thai partner. In this slide, you will see the Team Thailand and Royal Thai Embassy in Europe, including in Stockholm, and working with the as per the Association of Thai Professionals in European region in many countries in Europe, and working with students as well, Thai Student Academic Conference in Europe, and working with the EU partner, especially with the European Commission, DG Research and Innovation, and also with various organizations in Thailand. For example, the NSTDA under the ministry. Next, please. And now I'm going to share you for a big picture of Horizon Europe. Next, please. And here is the Horizon Europe budget, the structure of the framework program of the Horizon Europe. Basically, the Horizon Europe is the new research and innovation framework of the EU to replace the old one, the Horizon 2020, which had the budget of 80 billion, cover the last 7 years that will finish this year, at the beginning of this year. And then we will have the new research and innovation framework program that we call the Horizon Europe. And so for the Horizon Europe, the figure of the budget at the moment is 95.5 billion euro, will cover from 2021 to 2027, which is a lot of budget, the largest research and innovation budget in the world, actually. And for this Horizon, for this framework, the Horizon Europe, for the big picture, will support the EU green and digital transformation. This is the big picture. But in terms of the distribution among for the we will have three main areas. The first one we call the pillar one. deal with the excellent science, and then we have the pillar 2 dealing with the global challenge and European industrial competitiveness. That we have 6 clusters. This is the target that Europe is focusing. That also the global challenge as well. And we have the last one, the pillar 3, the innovative Europe. That Europe would like to be the leader in terms of the innovation. Next, please. But very important, who can participate for the Horizon Europe? That is very important why we are listening at the moment. So the EU partner for sure that can participate for the EU budget. All the EU partner will be able to participate. Also associate from the EU partner, for example, like Switzerland, and United States, Japan, Korea, Canada, for example, that associated country. Then we have the third country that will be able to join, that including Thailand. The low and the middle income country will be automatically eligible to participate in the program, and Thailand is one of them. And but the most important point for the Horizon Europe, we must have the consortium. In the consortium, we must have at least 3 EU partners from different countries, and then the third country like Thailand can attach to. So the collaboration here will occur. But in some special program, for example, the talent mobility program, no need to form the consortium. The young talent Thai researcher can join with the excellent the institute in Europe, which has some kind of the progress in research and innovation. This is the way that we have the exchange program by the researcher. Yeah, as I mentioned, Horizon Europe budget 95.5 billion euro will cover for the main 3 areas: excellent science, the Marie Curie program, which is dealing with the talent mobility program, is the most successful program for Thailand that we can participate there, because we have a lot of many talent researchers from Thailand that can work with the research institute in EU, in Sweden, for example, maybe in the field of the forestry. And for the excellent science, we have the 25 excellent science 25 billion, but dedicated to the Marie Curie, the talent mobility program is about 6.8 billion euro, which is quite a lot. And then the biggest one is the global challenge, and this is dealing with 6 clusters, and the forestry will be in that as well. I will talk further. Next one, please. And here the excellent science, as I mentioned previously, 6.5 billion euro for the talent mobility program. The European Research Council and the research infrastructure, I don't have time for today to talk, but it's relevant with EU very much. But Thailand can be a partner somehow. We can discuss further. Next, please. And this is the very important the aspect that we should discuss, the pillar 2, 6 cluster. And in this 6 cluster, basically the Horizon Europe is designed to tackle the challenge, the global challenge problem, as well as to boost the competitiveness and the growth. And so we have 6 clusters. We have the digital industry and space, civil security for society, the health, the food, and here. So we have the cluster that the discussion today is really when here is the food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. Also, we have the climate, energy, and mobility, and the inclusive society as well. Next, please. And the third one, the pillar 3, innovative Europe, is really, as I mentioned previously, really went to the EU. So I won't talk much today. So we skip to the next one. And this is very important topic that we should discuss about financing, the core and funding opportunity. Next, please. Before that, you know, we have the 6 cluster previously. All the 6 cluster actually is will be the 5 mission area that the EU is targeting at the moment. It's like send you know, for the Apollo to the moon or something like that. But here Europe set up the 5 mission area, which is the ambitious goal. The target for 2030 to reach, but for the 7 years, the Horizon Europe will support this high ambition. And so the first one, adaptation to climate change, and cancel the healthy ocean, sea, coastal, and inland water. This is relevant to the topic that we are discussing today, and also the climate neutral and smart city, which is relevant to the topic that we discussed yesterday. and we have the soil health and food. This is also relevant to the topic that we are discussing today. Next one, please. This will be almost, I will have 2 more slides. I will try to finish quickly because this is the last program. And so we have the core. This is only the example. And please be, you know, I would like to remind that this is only the draft, not the actual one yet, because the Europe delay for the launch of the Horizon Europe from April now to June next month. So, but it has been approved in the process a lot by the EU. But so it won't be much different, I think. And so there will be just the core that we have the impact and dependent business on biodiversity with the budget of 5 million euro for true project that can support between 2 and 3 million euro. But this one is very relevant to the topic today. Is the Horizon CL6 and 062 state of digital revolution in the forest-based sector. So we use the digital technology to improve the forestry management. This is we don't have much time in detail, but also other topic that Copernicus atmosphere monitoring service, the evolution is dealing with the satellite data that Europe also the leader in the world as well. So we can, and also Thailand, we have the organization GISDA under the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, that we can have the collaboration or share the satellite data for this kind of management. And so next slide, please. And this is my last slide. So it's just the example. We have a lot of topic. I pick up only a few, from the draft. So they have a huge number, but this is only the example. For example, assessing the socio-politics of nature-based solution for more inclusive and resilient community. And they have the project which is dedicated to the EU-China international cooperation on the increasing the resilience of forest. So I hope that maybe in the future we can have the horizon that that will be dedicated to the EU and Thailand as well. Yeah, next one, please. This is I would like to leave my contact information, the Office of Science and Technology, Royal Thai Embassy in Brussels, and this is my contact and the office contact. And thank you very much for your attention, and I will be very delighted that to have a chance to talk to all of you today, and looking forward for the collaboration on higher education, science research, and innovation between Thailand and Sweden. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manop. That was very interesting call for collaboration between the two countries, and we are looking forward to seeing how far this goes, especially with having our distinguished panelists and all the attendees here today. So thank you very much for being here today, everyone. Special thanks to Dr. Rosario and Professor Yongyut for being our excellent moderators today. We must also apologize in advance if there were any shortcomings with the workshops, and we will send out the outcome document along with some feedback form for everyone to give us some feedback so that we can know what to improve for our future events. So on behalf of the Thai Embassy here in Stockholm, I would like to say thank you once again. Tak Somiket, ขอบคุณครับ and สวัสดีครับ
Thank you very much สวัสดีครับ
Thank you ครับ
Good night
ครับผม Wishing everyone a nice day ขอบคุณครับ
Have a nice day
Bye.
Bye.